G'day SA.
I'm Shannon.
And I'm Jay.
Now Jay, I've absolutely roughed it out here in the Flinders Ranges, camping out in this beautiful gorge.
Shannon, that is a painting.
So it is. It looks pretty real though, doesn't it? I'll be speaking to the artist of this painting about his work.
And also we'll be checking out what else this area has to offer. We start the day off in Hawker, a little outback town of just 230 people in the central Flinders Ranges. The town is known as the hub of the Flinders Ranges and boasts a fantastic mix of natural and cultural attractions. Many tourists from around the world flock to the town to view the renowned Wilpena panorama painted by the local artist Jeff Morgan.
Jeff Morgan is a true local to the area. He was born in 1956 in the tiny town of Laura at the southern end of the Flinders Ranges. At the age of 34, he began his work as an artist. The natural flora, fauna and landscapes of his residence in Hawker was inspiring and helped him shape his unique style. Now an internationally acclaimed artist, Jeff attracts thousands of tourists to Hawker each year. In 2000, the town approved Jeff's idea of the Panorama painting, which was sure to be a success. In 2001, he began the project in Hawker with his own bare hands. Jeff and his son dug almost 40 tonnes of dirt to make a strong foundation for the round building, which would hold the painting. These were necessary safety precautions in the high earthquake risk area. The building was completed and 4,000 hours of painting later, the Wilpena panorama was finished, precisely to scale. The painting is 33 metres in circumference and 3.5 metres in height. It incorporates landmarks such as the Wilpena Pound, the Bunkers, Elder Range and the ABC and Hazen Ranges. Tourists and locals are able to view the magnificent painting which replicates the view that can be seen from St Mary's Peak. The trek to see the view from the actual peak takes around 7 hours. Alternatively, visitors can travel to the gallery where there is a viewing platform over the unique artwork. So I'm here with Jeff Morgan, who's the painter of this amazing panoramic painting here in Hawker. Jeff, what inspired you to make this painting?
Well, originally I saw the one in Alice Springs that has burnt down since, and I sort of had the idea that one was sort of in different scenes to join together, which most panoramas I've found out since are. But I sort of just imagined it'd be great to do a painting from one spot and then have a real scene. And since then I've discovered that there's not that many in the world like that. I'm the only one in Australia that's painted to scale, and there's only about 5 or 6 of them in the world.
So what made you first start painting?
It's a bit of a religious experience actually, because I suffered from depression after having an industrial accident, and I used to be a house painter, worked right through the bush, and that's probably where I got my love for the outback. And I couldn't continue the work I was doing because of this accident I had, and I went into deep depression, and till at one stage I considered suicide, and this really scared me. I had the gun there and everything, and so I actually got on my hands and knees and prayed, and I had a pretty weak faith before that, but after that I had dreams every night until I actually picked up the brush to be an artist. It didn't make any sense to me. But once I picked up the brush, I knew that I had to go with it. Everyone thought I'd gone mad. My wife, she had a much stronger faith, and she said, "Oh, God's told you something." Yeah. And so I went with it. It was only three months after I first picked up that brush that I was a full-time artist. So that's how quick it was.
And so it was all self-taught, was it?
Yeah, all self-taught. Yeah.
And so you've got the panoramic painting here in Hawker. How long did it actually take you to complete?
It took 4,000 hours. It crammed into 13 months, and my wife tells me the longest session I did in here without a break was 17 hours.
Really? Did you, eat, drink, go to the toilet or anything, or just straight?
I probably went to the toilet, but that's about it.
That's commitment, that's for sure. Now, you've actually travelled the world, showcasing this painting. Whereabouts have you gone, and what opportunities have you had from that?
Well, just after we finished it, we had an invite to go to New York to speak about it, and a TV company, I won't say who it was, had done a story on it, and so we took that and showed it in the university in Manhattan, and from there we it caused a lot of interest, and we got invited to a lot of places, like into China and into The Hague, and Belgium and Poland and Germany and a few other countries as well. Apparently I didn't know, but there's only about 5 in the world that are actually painted to scale from one spot, and this is even though it's small on world standards, people are travelling out from all over the world just to see it, and it's quite amazing because they get here and then you tell them about Wilpena Pound, you think they've come to see the pound, you know? Yeah. And oh, what's that? And then you've got to tell them all about the Flinders Ranges and the pound. Then they've just come to see my panorama.
As we trek deeper into the Flinders Ranges, we reach our last stop of the trip. Blinman is a tiny settlement of just 23 permanent residents, but has a claim of being the highest surveyed town in South Australia. With just one hotel, a cafe, a general store and a gallery, the town is in small size but has an endless amount of charm. Blinman has a relaxed atmosphere and is a perfect place to get in touch with nature and explore the natural environment that South Australia outback has to offer. These were the qualities that attracted Nat, a British zoologist, and Ryan, a cameleer, to Blinman. I was walking along the creek bed here in Blinman and I found a rare species, Nat. Now you intrigue me because you're a zoologist. Now, you think a zoologist, I think of the Adelaide Zoo and what they all do as zookeepers. Can you tell me what a zoologist is?
Our zoologists study everything to do with animals, from behaviour, psychology and their interaction with the whole environment, the plants, the rocks, the soil and all the other animals as well.
Why is psychology so important with animals?
Psychology, because animals don't just do things randomly, everything is for a reason. So when you study the psychology, you realise why an animal does something, and if that behaviour changes, you have to look at why it's changing or why the environment's changing.
So what brought you to the Flinders Ranges?
Oh, the animals out here. You don't get the native mice out here. They're just amazing. You don't get them anywhere else like this in the world.
Can you tell me some of the rare mice that we find?
So we have a dusky hopping mouse out here, really big back feet and a huge tail, and he'll hop around at night. And really quite rare in this area.
So they are rare. What is that, because of the predators?
There's a lot of cats here at the moment.
Feral cats?
Feral cats, and they're the biggest predator.
So how did they get introduced to the Flinders?
They've always been around, but because of the rains that we had here 3.5 years ago, everything's just sprung to life. We did have a mouse plague that went through, and after that the cats just followed. Another
thing that they do is they sometimes tag some rare species. Do they do anything like that up in the Flinders?
We have been doing that north of here. We've been tagging all the mice ears so we can recognise individual mice when we recatch them for their location, their weight, everything to do with.
So you can track them to where their burrows are, to everything?
Yes, yeah.
So Nat, what's the fascination with the mice?
For me, living out here, I'm from England and we don't have any mice like that in England at all, and it is a rare thing to see. Very special when you do see them, so studying them has just been fantastic for me and fantastic for the species as well.
So what do they feed on?
They feed on all the small berries here, and
I probably ate some of them before we came down
possibly.
here.
One just behind you here, they would eat this one.
Wow.
Which would be excellent food for them. Ruby salt bush, that one.
Can humans eat those?
They can.
So if I try it?
You can try it.
Very sweet.
It is sweet. It's a nice one.
I won't try the green one because that's not ripe.
No.
No.
But pink or red, very good to eat. The mice love them.
Now, Nat, can you tell me a little about the ecosystem and how they all unite to one?
Oh, everything. I do particularly like looking at the mice here, but you can't look at them isolated. You have to look at the whole environment. The whole ecosystem works together. If there's good plants, there's good mice numbers, and then good prey numbers for the mice as well. So everything's interlinked. You can't just look at one thing individually.
So being a zoologist, where do you see your future? What do you want to improve here?
I would really like, with the camels, we can travel to really remote areas. They're very gentle on the ground to walk. So we can get into remote areas and do animal trapping, which is what we would like to do in the future here.
So having soft feet on the camel is very gentle and soft on the plants.
That's exactly it, yeah. We move quietly and we don't damage the ground.
Well, Nat, keep up the good work. I'm going to go and find myself some more of these berries because I've got a taste for them now, and I might even take some home with me.
No worries.
Thanks
a lot.
So Jay, I found some more berries for you. These look a little bit more succulent than the last ones you tried though.
They don't taste like berries. What is it?
It's essentially grass and
that's camel dung.
Nat and Ryan partake in environmental explorer missions with the use of their camels. Using camels is important in these missions as their gentleness does not disturb the natural floor bed, unlike vehicles. They also provide tourists with the opportunity to see the area on their regular camel tours. Camels can carry about 300 kilos, so carrying a person must be a breeze, hey Ryan?
Yeah, I think they enjoy carrying people. It's a lot easier than carrying big loads of water and firewood like they used to carry around.
And you've got a couple of camels here for tours. Can you tell me about the tours that you do?
Yeah, we do a variety of different trips. We do rides from 15 minutes, half an hour for the kids, up to 2-3 hour rides in the afternoon for the sunrise, the sunset rides, but also the extended treks as well, from overnight camps up to 10-20 day treks.
Now these animals are really, really beautiful creatures and they're not native to the Flinders Ranges area. What were they originally used for and why were they introduced?
Well, the Flinders Ranges was the main place they were brought out into in Australia, out to Beltana in the 1860s. They were brought out during drought years because they were able to withstand long periods without water and could also cope with the food around the outback of Australia as well. So they could also carry the big loads, just where bullock teams and horse teams weren't able to get into.
So Ryan, how many camels do you have here?
We've got 10 camels all up, but we have the 5 main working camels at the moment. We've got a couple of young calves that are still in training. They just come out occasionally.
And where do you actually get them all from?
They've come from a variety of different places. Some of these camels were wild caught. Victor here was caught out in the desert, and some of the other camels here were also captive bred.
And do you train them all as well?
We do train them ourselves.
Can you tell me about the training process?
The training is really just repetition of work and just getting the camels to enjoy it as well. Camels like eating and walking, so if you can keep camels doing those sort of things and just strict with repetition, they learn very quickly to any sort of work really.
So Ryan, Victor here was actually caught from the wild. Is it hard training camels who have been caught from the wild instead of ones that you've bred?
I think Victor was a bit of a special case. Like Victor is a beautiful camel and just did have that sort of temperament that learnt very quickly. We also had a lot of other camels with us and he was able just to watch what all the other camels were doing and saw that they weren't being distressed or anything and was quite happy to just follow along with what the other camels were doing.
And do you think they enjoy being in captivity?
I think they enjoy working camels. They enjoy getting out, walking, meeting people and doing things. And you can see when they do walk around, it seems they really do enjoy their work.
So Ryan, what do you feed the camels?
We feed them a little bit of hay just to get them back into the yards at night time and in the mornings just for a bit of early breakfast. We do try to let them out for a few hours through the day as well to browse on some of the food around the place. At the moment with the rains we've had this year, there's a lot of what's known as wards, where there's a lot of the greenery around at the moment. It's almost like a water lolly for the camels. The camels, they'll eat a lot of that stuff, and with that they really won't even need a drink of water.
They won't need a drink of water?
Now these camels, for about 2 weeks now, they haven't had a drink of water. A few days ago we offered them some water again and they just weren't interested at all. They just don't need it, they're not interested, there's plenty in the food, so they're not worried about eating it. It really does depend on the food they're eating at the time though. If they're eating dry food like hay, then they will like to drink as much water as they can.
And Ryan, I think it's time for this guy to get up. He looks like he...
I think he's keen to get up, he wants to go for a walk.
He wants to get out and about and walk around, so how about we go for a ride?
Righto, sounds good.
It is a long drop.
Riding camels is a little different from what many would expect. An average camel is about 7 feet in height and it really does feel like sitting on top of a 1-story building. But once you're over the fear, it's actually quite an enjoyable ride. Camels are very soft in their walking, so a lot of the times you can just sit back and relax. There are a lot of feral goats in the Flinders Ranges area back from the day when they were domesticated for things such as cutting things around and for milking, but goat's meat's actually quite good to eat as well, so how about we take some home with us and see what we can do with it. Now Michael, we've brought some beautiful goat back from the Flinders Ranges. What can you cook with us today?
Well, I think we should make a beautiful goat ragu using some of the San Remo curly fettuccine. The first thing we need to do is get the goat on, because it's going to take a fair bit of time to cook, probably about 2.5 hours. And all we're going to do is chuck it into our pan, nice and hot. What we're doing here is getting a nice caramelisation on the goat. We're not cooking it all the way through here. This is our chance to get some flavours coming out. The only other thing I'll do is just add a little bit of salt here, which will help bring some of those flavours out. And all this flavour on the bottom of the pan here too, we're going to sort of deglaze that with a bit of water and some tomato sauce, and that'll actually, keep adding flavour to our dish. So just leave that alone, cook for a couple of minutes. I can talk you through our other ingredients. So we've got some bay leaves here, some rosemary, some onion and some garlic, and that's all we're going to need with the tomato passata to make our little ragu. And it definitely goes best with pasta. And this is, you would find goat, a lot in Italian dishes. There's a lot of goat that grows in Italy, and I guess like the Flinders Ranges, there's a lot of feral goat. They'd have a lot of goat, running around the hills in Italy, and they'd probably hunt them and use them in very similar dishes to this. So you can see, Shannon, that the goat's nice and browned around the sides, and there's a lot of flavour stuck to the bottom of that pan. So we're just going to take the goat out. Just going to add a little bit more olive oil, and then I'm going to add about half the onions I've got here. Do you want to give it a good bit of salt and pepper in there now? Yep. And you can give it a stir too. The liquids will start coming out of the onions. You can see how the flavour's coming off the bottom of the pan now.
It's mixing in with the onions.
Yeah, so the more liquid that comes out, the more flavour that'll come out. We sort of want to just cook these till they change colour. So the onions start going a bit translucent. You can see from there to there, it doesn't take very long. Now I'm going to add the herbs. So I'm going to chuck in a couple of bay leaves and just some rosemary. I'm just going to zip them off the stem, but also chuck the stems in as well. We can pull them out later. I'm going to add clove and a bit of garlic that's diced up. Give it about a minute. Let it start cooking, get its flavours coming out. And then we're going to add our goat back in and some of the juices that have come out from it as well. And we're also going to add in some tomato passata. You're going to mix that through. We're just going to add a tiny bit of water as well. And this is pretty much ready to go in the oven.
So Michael, we've just taken the goat out of the oven and put it on the stove, and it looks and smells divine.
It's come up all right, hasn't it? So now we just got to cook our pasta and finish off the ragu. So really simple. So we've got the curly fettuccine there. We're going to chuck that into our salted boiling water. Now we've got to fix up this ragu. Well, not fix it up, it's really good, but we're going to add to it. Just going to sprinkle those carrots in, and we've also got some onion and some celery. So we're just going to sort of let this simmer away, so they'll cook down a little bit, but they won't be sort of soft. They'll be still add some crunch, which will give the dish a bit of flavour. So I've drained our pasta, so now all we do is bring it together and plate it up.
Awesome.
So I'm going to scoop a couple of spoons of the goat in there. Just want to mix it all together. I just want to coat that pasta in a lovely sauce, and I reckon we just fill up that big pasta bowl full of the lovely ragu and some of that beautiful curly fettuccine. And then I reckon we just finish off with a big sprinkle of parmesan. And that's our goat ragu with some curly fettuccine.
Delicious.
Excellent.
Finally, for the last stop of the day, we go back to where Blinman all began. This old copper mine was the reason for the settlement around the area, and without it, Blinman would have never existed. The Blinman Heritage Tourist Mine opened in April 2011 and was set up by the local volunteers. They raised money and worked extremely hard to establish it, so it's no wonder they share such a strong connection with the success of the mine tour. Cherie is a specialist in the area and guides visitors through the mine.
Now we have to think back 150 years. Back then there was a shepherd and his name was Robert Blinman. He was part of a run back then called the Angarichina Run. That took up Blinman and a lot of the surrounding area. Shepherds were actually covering unbelievable distances. Because people were talking about minerals, they were making it part of their day-to-day wanderings to keep their eyes open. He wasn't the only shepherd to discover minerals. He just happened to be the only one who finished up with a town named after him. So he's actually up on top of that hill up there, and he discovers an outcrop of copper, so it's above the ground. He recognises it and finds out it's going to cost him £10 to purchase the lease. He doesn't have the £10, he's a shepherd in 1859. What he does is he gets together with 3 other men. They purchase the lease, but then they don't do anything with it. They just sit on it, they wait. 2 years later, they're either, well, they're pretty smart or they're really lucky. They sell it. They sell it to an English mining company for £70,000. Okay, so this guy had half a wooden leg. His nickname was Peg Leg. So the saying is Peg Leg made the most money out of the mine than anybody else, and that's actually true. It was the longest running and the highest producing copper mine in the Flinders Ranges. It produced roughly 200,000 tonne of copper ore, and that yielded about 10,000 tonne of copper. Back then, using the methods that they were using, that was a fairly unbelievable feat. I had a guy down here about 8 weeks ago who was a modern day miner, and he actually said what took these guys 55 years then would today take about 4 weeks. There would actually be nothing left here. There would be just one very, very, very big hole in the ground. We're lucky enough that these guys kind of really knew what they were doing, so now we're able to take people under the ground and show people what they used to do.
Once we enter the mine, we can straight away get a feel for the history. The mine is very well presented and provides visitors with an insight of the old tools used by the workers back in the day. The mine was worked from a vertical main shaft which was sunk to the 146 metre level. An incline shaft then followed the dip of the ore body a further 37 metres down. There are several spots in the mine walls where copper veins can still be clearly seen today, forcing their way through large sedimentary rock formations. The heritage of the mine is very important to the residents of Blinman, who try to make it a great experience for all visitors.
Now Cherie, how come the group continued the heritage?
I think the main reason for that is that we know that the visitors that come to see the mine are actually people that are interested in the heritage, but as a group of people that live here, we're also interested in the history of the town, and you know that it's a small town that's kind of survived, and we like to show people, you know, what's happened here and why we're here.
It's wonderful, isn't it? Thanks for having us today.
It's absolutely a pleasure.
And one thing, how come they did stop the mining?
Oh, they stopped mining because the main reason was that the price of copper had plummeted. Also, the life of all the mines, and this mine as well, was like a roller coaster ride, and when the price of copper went down, they just sort of threw their hands up and walked out. But by that stage, the other thing that had happened was that they'd taken most of the copper out of here, so it actually wasn't worth their while.
Now, just before we go, shouldn't scare of bats. Let's go and find some scare of bats. Let's go and throw some bats.
Okay.
Let's go.
Well, Jay, there really is so much to do in the Flinders Ranges area.
Love the activities and all the scenic tours.
It's such a beautiful place to come and visit, and to think we only covered a smidgen of what's available to do.
Well, if you like today's episode, head to our website, getasatravel.com.
And don't forget to like us on Facebook.